All right, marker in place. All right, the command pattern mainly is to allow us to rebind keys. So specifically, we want to rebind jump, like, you know, they have here like jump, fire gun, lurch, swap weapon, like, and we created, I think, a playground in here. Oh, it wasn't in this specific folder that I opened up. If I go back one, I can go into the P5.js version, and we'll go into the playground here. Yeah, let's open up code command.js. Sure. Okay, so this is the general idea about the command pattern, is that we're going to need some kind of input handler. Now, class here, because the example code was C++. And then the actual command class. Now, this looks like this is an interface that we're trying to create and sort of make in sort of JavaScript-y ways. And then the jump command here. Okay, so each command would be its own class too, which has the execute method on it, which then it takes in an actor, which would be the character in this case, and then just calls jump on it. So it knows exactly what to do. And we notice in our setup, we create an instance of the input handler. We pass it in the command, and then we can now bind. That command if we need to, or rebind it. Now in game loop, we then have input handler handle the input. It's then going to tell us what command we're going to run. Like if we're going to run the command, and then we execute the command for the actor, so to say. And then we move. Okay, so move using an example. So move unit commands. Basically, it's just another class that is an actual command. And it has execute and undo and all the other stuff. So we're making it a more action game, so we don't need this entire like move unit command, which was based upon like an, what is it, a Civilization 4K style game, turn-based. So what this tells me is that we're going to need a struct for an input handling struct and a command struct. And then we're going to need some traits, because there's no interfaces and there's no inheritance in Rust, but there are traits, and traits look a lot like interfaces. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to start with maybe so we know that command needs an execute, and that's pretty much it. Input handler needs, so it's going to have the constructor that takes in the commands, and then it figures out, so jump command. Okay, so it figures out the command one, and then it also needs to know what the jump key code is. Okay, so let's go ahead and create, I don't know, maybe our input handler to begin with. Also, let me know if, because the desktop's fans are running, I mean, it's to be expected with, you know, oh, come on, pop up. You can't see that because I'm just capturing the VPC, but the computer just had a nice little pop-up over me. Okay, so let's create our input handler. So in our game, we're going to create a new file here. I'm going to call this input handler.rs. it's going to be a pub struct. Some Rust components not installed. Yes, install them. I can also, because I forgot that I have this, click U, and the Twitch highlighter is now active and ready to use. So you can use bang line, and that will highlight a line. If you want to like call attention to it, you can even do bang line space and then a message, like if you have a question about, for example, some line or a group of lines. All right, so pub struct input handler. And I guess we're not completely sure what we need to store right here, so let's not worry about it too much. We're going to impl the input handler. We know we need a constructor, so that's a pub function new. And we're going to return an input handler. And so let's do that, input handler, like that. So that gives us the very basis of it, and we know that we're going to need to store this. Let's go into our main library. Mod the input handler. Get the input handler here. In our game, let's store the input handler as type input handler. And then we'll create our instance of it here. And throw it into our game. All right, so everything should still compile and work the way we want it to. Oh, that's the reason why. Started scanning for viruses. That's not the best time to do it. It didn't affect the CPU too much though. It was able to, stream was just fine, didn't drop below 60 frames per second. So I'm liking the computer and the fact that I can do that. I just don't necessarily want it to do that when I'm streaming. All right, so we have, okay, my game, input handler. So that gives us like the basics of their input handler. Let's now create the command for jump, and then we'll figure out a way to put the command into the input handler. Because we have two commands, right? We have a command for jumping, and we have a command for restarting the game. So in here, we're going to do, so I wonder if it would be best to have a folder for this, so that way we can have like the traits, or should I just have it all together? I mean, if I just do it all together, we could have like command, essentially it's the command trait, .rs. If we do this, we're gonna do pub trait, and this is gonna be command. And I forget how to specifically do this. I think now I can just say, okay, there's going to be a function. Just give it the signature, right? So function execute, and we know it's going to take in a self, and we know it's going to take in some kind of actor. And the type of the actor, super, it's going to be the player. Now, I suppose if I had a computer-controlled player, I might need, like, if it was still the same player, that's fine. And if we think about, okay, so execute takes in actor player, what if we have something like restart game, which doesn't need the player. How would I end up doing that? I could have like potentially execute on player and then execute on not player commands. So that's actually interesting. I don't know exactly how we're going to implement that, but let's do jump first. Now, return-wise, we're not going to return anything. We're just going to call actor.jump. So that's pretty much it. No return. And we're done. So let's now get out command, the command trait. And we're not going to use it here. Instead, we're going to use it in the actual command. So if we do jump command.rs, so this is pub struct jump command. What are we needing to... Oh, I didn't keep it around. Oh, it was this one. Okay. So in our jump command, all it's doing is defining that execute. So there's no constructor essentially. So in our jump command, it's an empty struct. So we're going to implement off jump command pub so implement we need the trait. So we're going to use super, and then it's going to be the command trait command. Oh, and I think it needs to be modded in here. And I think that's going to allow us to grab it at this point. Yeah. So now implement command for. Is it for implement command in for? I can't remember what the use case, like the use command is, the use syntax is. But basically I'm saying, okay, I want to implement command for the jump command. And then this should yell at us that we're not implementing it. Now it's not yet, but I think that's because we're not implementing into the main libraries. Let's do that. Let's mod jump command. Jump command, and then I don't think we're going to store it in here. It's going to be part of the input handler. But it is showing we have an error, so that's perfect. Not all trait items are implementing, mixing, execute. So it is the for keyword here. So it's saying we're missing execute, so let's add that in. So function execute, we know it's gonna take self and then an actor, which is a player, so we need to use super, and we know this is gonna be a player. Execute doesn't return anything, and so the jump command, we're gonna call actor.jump, like that. You need to be mutable. Now, I don't want to actually take ownership of the player, do I? So let's make this a mutable reference to the player. And now I can make the actor jump like this. Now, what are you upset about? Method execute has an incompatible trait. So yes, we need to come back to the command trait and tell it that actor is a mutable reference. Perhaps I should have like, yeah, a command trait. So all of our commands will just come into here. All of our types of commands, I guess. So we might end up wanting to rename this to like a very specific type of command, or yeah, like this might be like a player, like an actor command or something. Simply because of this. Okay, so I have that. Now we need to hand this into our input handler when we begin, along with what the default command hierarchy is, like maybe what the default key code is. That's what it is. So in our input handler, we want the command to come in. So we want a command, and we can take ownership of it. We're going to be storing it. So in our struct, we can store the jump command, for example. So jump command, use super jump command, jump command. So this will be a jump command that we're storing here. We also want the jump command's key code. And then I can't remember what the key codes are. Well, actually we do know, and we can use it. So use, this is ggz, input keyboard key code. So it's a key code. We'll see whether or not key code implements copy for us. Okay, so if we have both of these, the command is going to be a jump command, and then I guess we just need to know, like, what is the default jump command key code? If we pass that in at this point, the input handler doesn't need to worry about that. But I could also have like defaults that maybe input handler cares about. So let's try jump command. Do I want to? Let's maybe not do that here. Input handler is in charge of like key code type stuff. So let jump command key code equals, and then we'll use, this is going to be key code space. And so our input handler, we're now going to store those. Jump command key code. Oh, I call this command, so let's just do jump command. Okay, that gives us a brand new input handler. I can now use that. So here when we're creating our input handler, we need to actually pass it the jump command, which means we need to create a new jump command for it. Our new jump command, basically there's nothing here for us. If I have new, because that's just the pattern I've been using, we can do impl jump command pub function new. It doesn't take anything in, and it returns a jump command. So we're just going to return jump command, just like that. So in our main library, input handler, so let's actually create that. jump command equals, and this can actually maybe be part of this input handler new because it's asking for the jump command. So do jump command, we want full jump command new. Just like that. So that should make input handler happy and we should have no errors again. Okay, so we have our input handler, we have a jump command in there. It knows that space is the default jump command. If I don't want to like implement anything else about this, in our update, we need to now determine have the input command give us the commands. So handle input, essentially. So in our input handler, so public function new, we're going to do public function handle input. I don't think we need a mutable self. All we're going to do here is determine which jump command we want to return. So we're going to return, and then we're potentially not going to return it too, right? Because if you're not pressing a spacebar, we don't want to return the command. So I could do this as an array, a vector of commands, but right now it's just potentially one command. So let's just do it. We'll refactor as we go with when we add in a second command. So in this case, probably an option. So if I do an option, which is going to be a jump command, and so an option in Rust is allowing to say, okay, well, it's either going to be a jump command or nothing at all. When this is not the same thing as null, it's going to force us to handle the none case. All right, so it's yelling us because we're not returning anything. So we need to determine, are we clicking on something? And we can do that. So use ggez input keyboard. I think we need the keyboard there, don't we? Or we need, yeah, I think we need keyboard. Keyboard. And so if we do if keyboard is key pressed, okay, so we do need the context here too. Which means we need to take that in. So here's our context, and then is the key pressed key code? Well, that's going to be our self.jump command key code. Okay, so if that is being pressed, then we want to return a sum self.jump command. Now, if we reach this point, so we want to else, and I actually, if I don't put a semicolon, it will return this sum jump key code, and then I can do else, where we're going to return a none. And you cannot move out of self-jump command, which is behind a shared reference. So I could create a copy of it, or I could give it a reference to it. References and lifetimes might come into a problem. If I do say that I want to give a reference to the jump command in the option, will it know that it's going to live long enough? Or is it going to give me a lifetime error? So far, no errors, and I think it's because it knows that handle input, the struct, is going to be inside of the main game is living long enough. Although we'll find out when we use handle input. So maybe it's not going to calculate the lifetimes until that point. So we get our handle input, we get our jump command. In our main library, we want to come down to update. And so here's, okay, so if the game state is plain, we apply the force, we have the player run, and then here's the entire jump command thing. So if I comment you out, we want to now get the jump, get the commands that the player is trying to hit. So if I do let command, in this case it would be our jump command. So let jump command equals self dot input handler dot handle input, pass it in the context. We now get an option jump command. So if we are jumping, so we can actually change this from a let to an if let jump command. So what are you going to be? I think this needs to be a sum, and it's essentially command in here. So now we have the actual jump command. Maybe I'll call it jump command just in case, just to make it more clear what command this is. Now we can run jump command and pass it the actor. So jump command dot execute, and we'll pass it the self dot player, and that should be it. Method not found in reference to jump command. Okay, so execute is not found in there. We do know that we have jump execute in here, and it takes in the actor, which is a mutable reference to a player. So we know that jump commands coming in here. We know that that's a reference to a jump command. No method name execute for current, found for reference jump command in the current scope. Items from traits can only be used if the trait is in scope. So I need to pull the trait in here. So that's the problem. So use, what is it? Command trait, command. That makes this goes away, and now it's yelling at us that our player is not a mutable borrow. Okay. So if we save this, we have no errors. Let's see if it runs and our player jumps. Cargo run. All right, escape to start. And can I jump? I can. All right. So the jump command is working now. We've abstracted out a little bit. The logic isn't specifically in here. If I try to jump multiple times, it only allows us to jump specifically when we're allowed to, but that's not because of the input handler. That's actually something due to the That's something due to the jump command itself determines whether or not it's allowed to run. It's allowed to jump. So that's pretty awesome. Let's go ahead and save this up. So refactored to use jump command. Push that up. All right, I can now take this away. We no longer need to do any of the keyboard checks here. Sure, go ahead and periodically run get fetch. The next thing is we want to have a second command available to us, specifically that command to reset the game. Now this is going to be interesting because our trait here, the resetting the game doesn't need an actor. It's going to be just changing the state of the entire thing. So I wonder if I should change like this to be an actor command. And then we're gonna also have, so pub trait, just sort of like a normal command, game command. So we'd have different types of commands now. So if this also has a function execute. It takes a mutable reference to self because it's going to be running an input handler and then nothing else. And that's it. Now an input handler, we want the jump command, but we now also want the, those are actual commands. Where is the, I didn't bring in, this doesn't implement that. It implements that in the command trait. So I need to create the command next. So we have the jump command and we have the reset game command, rs. So pub struct reset game command. It doesn't do anything. We can have an implement for it to give us a new one. But all this does is give us a reset game command, just like that. What's really important for us is the use super command trait game command here. So implement game command for reset game command. So now it should yell at us, or at least it would if we hooked this, wired it up. So let's do function execute. We know we want a self in here. Nothing else happens. Nothing gets returned. And so when we execute, what do we need to do? We need to update the state of everything. Now the state is in the main library here. We have the game state, which is a game state struct. So maybe this needs to update, we need to pull in the game state and update that. Now, what is game state? It's just an enum plain game over help. You know, I can't remember. Is it possible to do an implement on an enum? And would it be more important for us to have... Well, I guess maybe execute is going to return the new game state that we have, and so we just set it. Maybe that's what happens. So in reset, maybe execute has to return the game state? Or do we want this to be super basic and execute calls, like update itself on game state? Can I do this? Impl. Maybe before I go into this code, let's go find the what is it? The playgrounds. So if I create, let's make this a little bit bigger. If I create a struct, so struct game, oh wait, this is not being a string. Let's create an enum. Game state, and we're gonna have a couple different arms. So 1 and 2. And then I want to have a impl on game state. Can I have a function, I guess it's gonna be a pub function update? So like switch to 1, let's say. I don't think it would be a switch to 1. It would probably be, we're not going to have immutable self. We just need to know self, and we're going to return essentially a game state. Do I have to specify which one? I don't know. We'll find out. So in this case, we're going to return a game state 1. So if I set ourselves up with let state equals, let's start off with game state 2. Can I now call something on that from state? So, heck, can I even maybe not even do this, have it be immutable itself and have it switch to the other one? So like self equals, I don't know if I could do this at all. So state dot switch to 1, and let's debug the state. See if this works, or if I may need to derive debug off of this enum. See if I get just a terrible error. Let's see, variants should have uppercase. Okay, so here's our error, mismatched types, self game state 1, expected mute game state found enum game state. Oh, interesting. Okay, so found expected immutable reference to game state. So that's right here. Cannot assign to immutable argument self. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. yeah, it's telling me I need to do this, which doesn't make sense because as soon as this function returns, it's going to be all sort of like weird. I wonder if I can do like the self one like that. Yeah, okay, so it's expected a mutable reference to game state found enum game state. Consider dereferencing here to assign to mutable borrowed piece of memory. Oh, interesting. So it wants that to be dereferenced. Let's state, okay. Cute. State equals 1 now. Ooh. Now, if I have another arm on here, so if I have 3, so we debug state, we have a pub function switch to 3, self, dereference self equals self 3. Then I do state dot switch to 3. Debug state. It should now show 3 as well. It would help if I spelled that correctly. Borrow a moved value state. So let mute state. Move occurs because state has type game state, which does not implement the copy trait. Typo in 14. Yeah, I got that typo. Thank you, Chosen Derek. Nope, British. You are. Don't want advertisements for that. How do I make that mob window go away? There you go. And you, nope, no advertisements. So immediate ban. All right. Anyway, thank you, Chosen Derek, for that. I think that was the mute that you were talking about, right? Okay, so borrow move value state. So we can now implement maybe clone on here. We might have to implement copy as well. Yeah, copy and clone. As far as I know, they always need to be implemented together. All right, so state is 1 and now state is 3. So I was able to sort of have it change itself through its own functions. And that's super, super interesting because that means I can pass the game state enum into the execute function. And then it can sort of update itself depending upon what I want it to do. So how do I know what I want it to switch to? Or do I want the enum game state? Oh no, okay, so the command. The reset game command implements execute, but we needed to bring in the game state, essentially. It can be a mutable reference, and then we call on it, update to, and then we have to know, how do we know what state to switch to? We currently have 3 states: plain, game over, help. Well, okay, we know. It's the reset game command. If we're resetting the game, we need to run the reset game function. So in a way, we need to pass that in too. Black White Life, good morning. Is there a reset life command? Not really. So what I have in the main library here is, do I have a function for it? I have this reset game function here. Perhaps this needs to be in the command. Actually, this is probably right. I need to do this. These are all just off of self. So if I pass in everything, then it just works. If I pass in the self, like a mutable reference to self, I wonder if that would work here. So if I copy you, we go to the reset game command. In execute, we need self like this, but of course it's not self to the command. We need to bring in a mutable reference to, I guess, like the game state. So a mutable reference to game state itself. So use super game state, which is, oh, it's my game. That's what I care about. It's not game state. My game. You also meant a real life reset life command. No, I'm sorry. I don't have that. All right, so game state. So in reality, I should call this the same thing. So it's going to be my game, a mutable reference to my game. Now, instead of self like this, we're going to now call my game dot player.reset location. So we just run all of these functions on it. And I want it to be a mutable reference to it. Now, whether or not this is going to be okay with that, completely different problem altogether. Now we are getting some errors. Unresolved import. Right, because I changed this. It's no longer a command. It's now actor command. And you are now, you're being used down here, right? You're an actor command. Okay, so that's that. In reset, so we now need to get the reset game command and pull that in. So, we need to mod it too. Reset game command, we'll use it. Reset game command. We also need to pull in the trait we know. Command trait. This is a game command trait. Do I work as a game developer? No, I do not. I do this as a hobby and also a way to improve my skills as a normal developer. So I am a software developer though. Reset game command. Okay, so then we now need to be able to handle these multiple commands. So in handle input, we have the jump command and jump command key code. We now want the reset game command. So we need to pull this into use super reset game command, reset game command. Reset game command is type reset game command. And then also we need a reset game command key code, which is type key code. So in our new, we bring in the jump command, and let's also bring in the reset game command. And then we need to figure out what the key code is. So reset game command key code is equal to, so right now I have it being the same. And the reason why we have it being the same is that we can rebind that later to be like something not crazy. So if I do key code space again, and let's store both these, reset game command and reset game command key code. In handle input, so keyboard is pressed. Okay, so this is determining if we want to return the jump command key code. The problem here now is we don't know which command we're trying to return at this point. So instead of an option, I should return just a plain old vector of commands. So a vec of, now they both implement commands, so this probably needs to be a generic. I need to return a generic because these are two different types, right? We have reset game command and jump command, but the generic returns, they don't implement the same traits, do they? I need like a, so that's interesting. In command trait, these are two different traits. I would need them to be the same trait if I want them to be, if I want them to handle like what, Our other option is do the same thing, run handle input for like the different states. I don't know if I could, well, because we have execute that executes on a player. And this can't, like we can't run this on a non-player object. If I want to use a generic here for execute, I would need some kind of trait to have. Ooh, okay. So I'm thinking we may need two different handle input commands. We need the handle input command for jump, because the vector unfortunately isn't going to be able to store unless I create an enum for the different commands. If I create an enum for the different commands, then I can return that. I don't know if that's a good idea. So I guess there's a couple ways we can go down this path. We can return a vec of some kind of enum, which would then be like a command. So a vec of an enum. So a vector of enum, which the enums are the different types of commands. We can have different handle input functions that get called by the reset game, or no, by the main library. So we can almost like handle input for player is different than handle input for like just the full game. And maybe that would be a good one. So like that would be handle input for player, handle input for just like the full game state. I'm kind of going towards this second one here. So if I change you to handle input, maybe handle player input. And we return this exactly to what we had before. So it's going to be a option, and then it's going to be a jump command right now, because we only have one potential command that can go into it, and some self jump command. So if I save you, what are you upset about? Expected struct jump command found. What did I have before? Let me undo you. Until we had what we had before. Oh, right. Okay, reference to a jump command. That's what it was. So if we change you to handle player input, then we can now create a public function handle, and this is sort of like game input. A reference to self, and I don't know if we need the context. No, we do, because we need the check the key if they pressed. So we do definitely need the context. And we're going to return an option and a reference to, and this is going to be a reset game command. And so we'll do this exact same thing here. So if keyboard is key pressed, handed the context, self dot reset game command key code. Then we're going to return some, and then a reference to self dot reset game command, else a none. So we have some errors here. We have 5 errors. And that's because it's now yelling at us because we're not doing the exact same thing here. So in execute, reset game command, what are you yelling about? Method execute has 2 parameters, but the declaration and trait has 1. Right. So in the trait, we need to now tell it, use super my game. So in this game command, we're going to have execute, take in a mutable reference. So it's going to be my game is a mutable reference to my game. Okay, so for you, input handler, expected one of colon at or pipe found closing. Where is this? Oh, right here. So new jump command, reset game command, colon. Oh wait, yeah. So we need to tell what kind this is. This is a reset game command. This function takes 2 arguments. So we have jump command new, and we're also going to take in reset game command new. No method named handle input found for struct. let's see. Right, because it's now, if we change this to handle player input, then we pass it into context. And that should be happy. Failed to resolve use of undeclared type or module game state. Right, so we need to pull in game state so it knows to change that. Let's use super game state. No errors. Hello, Chantilly, good morning. All right, so that gives us the handle input for this specific command. We don't know if it works yet. We need to actually run it. So main library, we now need to run that other like handle game command. We know that it's only going to happen at this, let's see, in the reset game, so game over. So right here, instead of this keyboard is pressed, let's now do let, if let sum, it's going to be our game command essentially. So we don't even necessarily know what command it is. Like, I guess like we kind of do, but the input handler is going to work with that. Equals self dot input handler dot, and then it's going to be handle game input, pass it in context. Not semicolon, and then in here we're going to run command dot execute, and then we have to pass it in a mutable reference to self. And that's the question, is that going to work? Cannot borrow self as mutable as it is not declared as mutable. Is it? Mutable self there, so that's a potential problem here. Can I just pass in self? Cannot borrow self as mutable because it's also borrowed as immutable. The mutable borrow occurs here. So 238, mutable borrow occurs here at 237. Can I do this? Say that I want to borrow it mutably? No, immutable borrow occurs here, mutable borrow, then at 238, and then immutable borrow later used by a call. You just wish the warnings and errors fix themselves. Yeah, that would be so nice. So this isn't, okay. Having the reset game in the main state is going to be the problem here, because we can't actually pass that through. So we're probably going to want to refactor this. Like it's gonna force us to refactor into maybe a better structure. Instead of storing all of this stuff on the main my game, as it were. Oops, I accidentally hit the microphone with my watch. Sorry about that. I'm gonna want to have some other struct. Did the oh no, the looks like the chatbot broke again. It was working last night when I tested it, but it's not working this morning. So I'll have to go in and like check out, see what's going on, because I reset the tokens on it so that it, the OAuth tokens, so that it could actually access the commands again. But apparently between last night and this morning, it broke. So that's not good. And I didn't test it before I started streaming. All right, so I think what we need to do here, if you go to our README, I've run out of time, so I'm not going to be able to work on this anymore. Perhaps you could run a cron job to test it. Ooh, that might be really interesting to try. Yeah, that might be good. Or have some kind of like monitoring system that lets me know like what the status of it is. That would be good too. So we need to refactor game state so that reset command is in another struct. So what do I mean by that? Like the player location, all of that stuff, that's fine. Like, I guess, do I need to pass in all of those things? We need to pass in like the player. We need to pass in the player. We need to pass in the score. Could it get away with potentially just passing in each of these things mutably separately? It's like pass in a reference to the player, pass in a reference to the score, pass in a reference to the obstacle. Ooh, that might work. And then pass in a reference to the game state. So this is not refactor game state. This is more of try passing in references to what I need to reset in the reset game command struct. All right, that's what we're gonna do. And before I forget like that idea, Chantilly, I am gonna write that down. So like create a monitoring service for the chatbot. I might need to like do a minor refactor of it to make sure it stays up, or at least like to get logging. I also need to get logging on it too. So set up logging for chatbot. All right. Alrighty then. Save you, save you. If I close all of these windows, everything is saved now. Perfect. I will go ahead and update all of you. So this is a work in progress. Adding the reset game command.